Hi, everybody. Welcome to the John Myer podcast. Now, today's topic is Veeam-Powered Managed Backup as a Service for Cloud. Before we get to that topic, how about we give our guests a chance to introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Michael Loos, Senior Product Marketing Manager with Veeam Software, supporting our Veeam Cloud and Service Provider partners as they build Veeam-Powered as a Service offerings for their customers.
Talk to me as Managed Backup as a Service and for Cloud. What is that all about?
So Managed Backup as a Service, a lot of organizations right now, especially small to medium-sized businesses, they start moving into cloud, right? Say AWS, for instance, and they get in there and they realize, costs very expensive. They're spending a lot of time managing it. And when they bring in a managed service provider to help with that, they can alleviate those costs, free up their resources, spend time focusing on things that drive their business as opposed to managing their AWS bill or managing their AWS environments.
Is there really value in it for them to manage backups?
For the service providers?
Yeah, I mean, is there really
absolutely.
I know traditionally, right? Most of
Yeah.
the time, manages are managed by the company themselves. But
Right.
as a managed service provider, so an MSP,
Yep.
is there really any value in
Oh,
it for them?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as a service provider going into, not only just with backups, but for everything else that's involved as well, right? A lot of times they get into these customer environments and realize there's a lot of point products that these customers are utilizing to not only do backups, but pretty much everything else. And if they can consolidate a lot of that down, especially if the organization is running multi-cloud scenarios, hybrid cloud scenarios, and they have tons of point products all over the place, as a service provider, they can consolidate into one solution like Veeam and drive those costs down, and then for themselves, make it a lot easier when they're managing those backups from a multi-tenant perspective.
Mike, imagine I'm an MSP. I reach out to you. I want to utilize Veeam. What does this process look like?
To get it started with Veeam?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I
Yeah.
want to start managing backups for customers,
Yeah.
and I have no clue. I have never done it before. Is it easy for someone who has done it,
Absolutely.
or somebody that is new?
Yeah. Usually our service providers have some level of, tech knowledge, of course, when they get into this. And a lot of times they're transferring over from another competitor and to get started with us, with our program, it's a free to sign up. I mean, they can get started, they can start testing out, trialing the products. And, once they get started, they can, we have our service provider program is a pay as you grow program. So they can come in as a non-commit level as they grow with their volume agreements and all that stuff. They can start paying less amount with the more consumption that they're reporting on.
What does the non-commit level look like? Like, what is that about?
Basically, you start off with whatever customers that you have, and you just pay what you're utilizing. That's it. And then as you grow, you'll commit to a volume level agreement saying that I have this many customers, I'm backing all these customers up, and I agree to pay Veeam this amount every month for that.
Am I able to basically utilize Veeam as maybe a white label type service, or utilize it, or does
Absolutely.
everybody see Veeam's the backup? And because it kind of defeats the purpose, like, oh, well, you're using, my customer's just
Yeah.
gonna go use you directly.
Absolutely. We have a product called Veeam Service Provider Console, which is a multi-tenant platform that our service providers use basically to scale their services. They can manage all of their customers through it. They can spin up their Veeam backup for AWS appliances through it, et cetera. And they also have self-service capabilities that they can offer their customers so that the customers can actually have a piece of that portal to go in and do partially managed backups themselves if they need to, or they can kind of control, the service provider can control what that customer can do in that platform as well. So if there's some self-service capabilities that they need, they can offer that to them. And they can white label it too. So it can look as if it's coming from that partner.
You're offering them the ability to the MSPs to have a portal, but then offer some capabilities to the customer to manage or see that themselves or restore it themselves. A portal on top of a portal.
Right.
And you've basically put the controls and the power into their hands that
Yeah.
makes it
And
look
that's-
like they own it.
And that's all with the agreement that the service provider has with that customer. There might be a small to medium-sized business, say, a flower shop or a barber shop or something to that extent, where that person has no tech knowledge at all. And they're completely relying on the Veeam service provider to take care of their backups, any restores that need to be done, and they're hands off. They're focusing on their business, what they're experts at, and leaving it all to the service provider. But then as you move into mid-sized organizations, enterprise, organizations, there's going to be IT teams, and you're going to become actually a part of that team as a service provider, right? You're going to become a crucial player in that. A lot of times, these organizations will say, we want to do everything else from the production standpoint. We don't want to manage backups anymore. So that's a good opportunity to give that over to a service provider, let them manage it fully. And if there's any scenarios that come up where they want, a self-service aspect, the service provider can work with them to create that.
Why doesn't the MSP use the cloud native tools to actually get this done? Why would they go and utilize Veeam for their customers?
Well, I always say, like AWS, they're not in the business of backup, right? They're in the business of hosted infrastructure. Yes, they provide a first-party backup solution. It's very good. With Veeam, like I said before, the service providers can consolidate all that environments that the customer might have into one point solution, right? So when you're looking at hybrid cloud models, multi-cloud models, Veeam can do all of that. And with the capabilities of portability that we have, they can back up from an on-premise footprint into AWS, for instance. And even from a migration standpoint, Veeam, we don't say we're a migration, tool or a migration company, but because of the portability aspect, you can place those backups anywhere you want. So if you're running a multi-cloud scenario and you have backups that may be more cost-effective in, say, Azure or something like that, and you're going to move them around, you can absolutely do that.
Actually, you touched on the other hyperscalers, right? So we're here at AWS reInvent.
Yeah.
We're talking AWS, but we all know others exist. And the functionality for MSPs to see all clouds for their multi-tenant. When I see multi-tenant and I hear about it, I see multi-cloud as well.
Right.
So each tenant, you might have one or two clouds that you utilize. Yeah. They can see all of their infrastructure, all their backups within the Veeam MSP environment?
Yes, through Service Provider Console, they get a dashboard that they can see. They get alerts. They can see if backups failed. They can see consumption rates and things like that are running through those environments for all of their customers. Just a single pane of glass for them to manage and monitor all of that customer base.
Well, let's talk about the MSP managing those backups. You talked about failed backups. How does Veeam handle failed backups? I know they do it probably the same way if you're an MSP or not, but how did they help the MSPs manage those failed backups?
Manage those failed backups? Well, I mean, from a restore perspective, everything can be done directly through that console, especially if we're talking like Veeam Backup for AWS, right? It ties in directly into a Veeam Backup for AWS appliance. So managing it through Service Provider Console, the restores can be done right there. It just makes it more efficient for that service provider to have that single pane of glass, as opposed to going into each environment, going into the AWS appliance itself, and then doing the backup, manually, whether it's policy-based or whatnot. But they still have to go into that. They have to go into the AWS appliance to make that change.
Mike, talk to me about the security level of an MSP managing all these individual tenants. Can my tenants or my customers see or access any of the other MSP's customers?
No, that multi-tenancy capability stops that, right? And then it isolates every customer environment from each other, so there's no opportunity for any infiltration into another customer's environment at all through the multi-tenancy capability through Service Provider Console or Cloud Connect, which that's the engine that runs that.
So what you're telling me is that Veeam is actually just providing a single pane of glass, a visibility for everything, and whether you're backing up, that is doing an API call to that individual account, handling that. We're just bringing the data into one seamless console.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So talk to me about the restore methodology for an MSP. Do you allow, I guess it would depend upon the customer, right? Do you want the customer to individually restore it, or you want the MSP to restore it? What does that functionality look like?
Well, from an MSP perspective, they're going to be restoring that on behalf of the customer. And most of the time, that's what the service provider is there for, right? They're relying completely on that service provider to do that restore. If they give that self-service capability to the customer, the MSP still has full visibility over the alerts of a failed backup or the alerts of a restore or the capability to do a restore if needed. So they're going to still see everything that's going on in that environment from a monitoring perspective, and then they can, step in if they need to.
Is there a way to, with the multi-tenant functionality, you're an MSP, and I have a customer or maybe another MSP under that MSP, like a smaller
Yeah,
shop or
like a
something.
reseller. Yeah,
Can you give multiple access to
you
down
can.
to a granular level?
Yeah, we do. We have large service providers that actually have MSP programs that are built out, and they have MSPs that work with them. So if you're a cloud hoster and you have, a cloud, and you're providing offsite backup, disaster recovery as a service, you can have a channel of MSPs that work directly with you. Because a lot of the smaller MSPs, they don't want to build out a cloud. They don't want to build a lot of infrastructure, right? So what they do is they partner with a larger service provider, a cloud hosting provider that does Veeam backup for, offsite backup, disaster recovery, and they'll partner with them. Basically, get a laptop, the portal that the service provider offers them. It could be a cut of the Veeam service provider console, or if they have their own workflows and platforms that they're using, they can give them a cut of that, basically a laptop and a UI, and they can do everything they need to do from that.
My cost is top of mind for everybody, and backups are a huge cost.
Yeah,
Whether you use them or not, or ever have to, it's like insurance. It's a
right.
huge cost, and hopefully you'll never have to use it one day. How is Veeam helping customers control or MSPs control that cost?
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, cost is huge, and a lot of customers they turn to MSPs because they find, like Sam said before, the bill shock scenario, where they moved everything to AWS, or maybe they started there and they're starting to grow exponentially. They start getting these bills, and they realize that they have, not just the backups are causing the consumption of the storage that it's taking is causing the cost, but we talk about data transfer, networking, everything that is being charged to that customer, and they'll turn to the service provider and say, hey, help me with these costs. And the tools that are built into the Veeam products can help forecast what those costs are going to be. Also, with the forecasting the cost plus the capabilities like data compression and things like that, that the customer may not know that those capabilities exist, or maybe even know that that would be a best practice to utilize. And they can bring the service provider in to start helping them drive those costs down.
Well, let's talk about the reporting or the forecasting. What capabilities does the console provide MSPs for not only dashboards or reporting capabilities?
Right. So they can, from the console, they can get into the Veeam backup for AWS appliance. They can look at that portal, and they can use the cost calculators that are in there, and they can generate a report based on the amount of backups that they're going to be, backing up, and they can provide the customer with a cost analysis of what that's going to cost them, plus any other costs that are associated with just the AWS environment itself or the Azure environment, Google environment, whatever, whichever one. They can, based on their expertise in those clouds, can bring it all together and formulate one cost analysis of what everything's going to cost.
Mike, what's next for Veeam-Powered Backup as a Service? What's upcoming that you can possibly share with us that you're working on for your customers to release some new functionality or an event that's taking place?
Yes, we have Veeam Service Provider Console version 8 getting ready to release very soon. We already did an enablement session for our partners on that. It's going to streamline ticketing through the console, help with those support cases, make it a lot more efficient for our service providers to handle those support cases, and provide just a seamless experience overall for them with that. So we're really excited about that coming out. A lot of our partners are excited about that as well.
Well, Mike, we're here at AWS reInvent taking place. Are there any sessions that you're putting on or Veeam's putting on that we can share with the audience?
Yeah, we have a couple of breakout sessions I know that are going on at the MGM Grand. And of course, our booth. We have a huge booth presence. A lot of engineers are over there, so if anybody's interested in coming and looking at the technology firsthand, putting their hands on it, just taking a look at it, we have a lot of engineers that are going to be there to support that and talk to you about Veeam Backup for AWS and all of our other products that we offer.
I actually want to share with the audience that Veeam has a free marketplace. You can actually back up a number of instances automatically and test it out and install it. That's how I got to learn and play around with it. So that's my suggestion for those individually using it.
Yeah.
But if you want to find out more information about Veeam Backup as a Service, you can come over to the booth. Is there any other place they can go?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to veeam.com, of course, and then we have a service provider page that talks about all of our different use cases that our service providers go to market with. Not just with public cloud, but with a SaaS solutions and just on-premise as well, too. So if you're talking about offsite backup, building out a disaster recovery as a service offering, containerized workloads as well, too, through our Kasten product. So,
before I wrap it up, and I know I wanted to do it before, but is there any type of advice that you can give MSPs when they're looking for a backup as a service provider that would set you guys apart from others?
Yeah, I would definitely say, find a partner, a vendor that offers a partner program that's built and designed for service providers. And Veeam the VCSP program has been in effect for well over, I think it's going on 12, 13 years at this point. So we honed it very well. We have a lot of our service providers that are very happy to be with Veeam. They're not going anywhere. They built their business around Veeam. So the technology and the capabilities that we continue to put into these products are going to help those service providers grow. And, the more they grow, the more Veeam grows, and then it just becomes one big happy family, essentially.
I love working with you guys. Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Appreciate it so much.
I appreciate it. Well, everybody, this has been another awesome episode of the John Myer podcast. It's been Veeam-Powered Backup as a Service for Cloud. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify because, as always, we're out of here.